What's going on?
How are you?
Is it 2:30 yet? We
It
got a
is
minute. We got a
on
minute.
the dot.
All right. So let's start with emotions, Mark. We should talk about our emotions.
Okay.
What is the emotion of the moment in the market right now? What are we feeling?
I can speak for some of the agents in my office and say one of the
Yes.
emotions they're feeling is frustration.
Okay, that could be an emotion. What else?
I don't know. What are you feeling?
I mean, I feel a little optimistic, but my optimism comes from a weird place. But we could talk about. But talk to me about frustration first. Like,
Yeah.
here's the reality of this call. Like, we don't. It's the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Like,
Right.
so what's the frustration coming from?
So what I'm hearing is people who have had business in the past couple of years, since even some agents that have been around since 2016, 2017, what they're doing right now doesn't work as well as it did. So they're having to do more of it to get the same amount of business.
So what they're basically what used to work is not working at the same level today.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So is the advice do something different, or is the advice just double down on what you're already doing?
So I have two pieces of advice. Typically, it's both. It's double down on the activities you're doing and do more of it, and look for new channels to meet new people. So like you have to ramp up your non-Mets coming into your database, as well as doubling down on the people you already know.
Yeah.
Numbers game.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like riding a bicycle is probably an easy analogy. Like when you're riding a bicycle downhill, you're going to pedal pretty fast, but you're going a lot. You're really
Right.
going somewhere. And then you start pedaling that same bicycle uphill. You're probably pedaling it as fast, but it sure feels a lot harder, and you're not going as far.
And you're moving a lot slower.
And and unfortunately, that's the reality of business and economy is we're pedaling uphill a little bit right now. So it's going to be harder. It's going to feel a little slower. But that doesn't mean stop pedaling. It just means keep going. It's the analogy, just keep going. Keep going.
That's a great analogy, because if you stop pedaling on a hill, what happens? You slide backwards.
Yeah. Right.
So you don't want to stop pedaling right now. You want to double down and do it. And the other thing right now, Brett, is just that doubling down on the efforts you're taking with the people in your database, like understanding really what's going on in their life is really important right now, because what's going to make anyone move is a life event. It's not like people calling you out of the blue saying, hey, I'm ready to sell the house. It's you listening for life events and asking questions around that to see if there's opportunity. So it's just a different way of thinking about your relationship building.
Yep, 100%. Mark, we should make mention, we've got a big update coming this week. Wednesdays inside the perimeter and Thursdays outside the perimeter. If you go to therealestatestats.com, log in, it's free, /events or whatever. You can get your ticket. I know the inside the perimeter is sold out. So, but one of the conversations we're planning on having there is specifically who's moving and why are they moving and how do I find them, right?
Yep.
So I love that you brought that up. Well, anyway, I asked you, you said the emotion was frustration, which I ain't gonna lie, if I'm riding a bicycle uphill, I'm frustrated, just so you know. But I actually feel a little optimism, and I think the optimism comes from a weird place, because I believe we're pretty much at the bottom and about to start recovering, right? Mm-hmm. And that feels very optimistic to me. I also believe that business is going to get easier in the future, not harder in the future.
Correct.
And I think that will be a big deal for those that are engaged and they're pedaling and all that stuff. So, all right, hit me up. So there's the presentations. I will say the in-town presentation is sold out. I actually think it's a little bit oversold. And then the Marietta location, you can still get tickets for. So hopefully you take advantage of that. But let's jump into stats.
All right. Let's see. Do you want to go by county
Can
here?
anybody else hear us? Terry said she can't hear us.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think,
Yes.
yep. All right. Never mind. There you go, Terry. Okay. So hover over Fulton County there, Mark,
All right.
and click it. Thank you for, I'm shotgun today. And then hover over the far right there, the peak of there you go. What? Read them out for us.
Active 763, active under contract 127, coming soon 24, pending 294, hold 33, withdrawn 83, expired 36, and closed 354.
All right. So what do we think about that in perspective?
Well, let's look at the perspectives. Let's see. We've got what 724 right there. So if you look, the actives are pretty consistent. They've gone up a little bit from the previous week. So, and looking at where we were last month around this time, it's a little higher. So it's actually moving in a positive direction, although not in it by a huge amount.
Perfect. Which means we're starting the recovery, right? We're trending up a little bit. So right now, you know, I laugh. We were talking about inventory being such an issue a year ago, and now we're talking about inventory being such an issue, but it's a totally different context, right?
Mhm.
Like they had nothing to buy before, and now inventory is so low, it's keeping prices up. Which is that a good or a bad thing? You could debate that, right?
Right.
But I think inventory needs to come up a little bit. So any positive increase in inventory is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Let's go back.
You want to scroll to the bottom? There you go. You can just go to the bottom.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So let's see. The cab. Scroll over. There we go. We've got 399, so down a little bit into cab from the previous week. 95 under contracts, down a little bit, and 18 coming soons. So overall, that's a little higher than previous week. So slightly down into cab for the week, but still sort of close to where we were last year, or last month rather, at around this time.
Yeah. The cab's pretty constant, I find. It doesn't have the big peaks and valleys that some of the other counties do. But overall, I mean, it's stable. I wouldn't say it's yeah.
I was just gonna say it's got a lot of more evenness in the price points. So there aren't quite as many peaks and valleys compared to Fulton.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, jump out to Cobb.
Cobb County, here we go. Here we are. And let's see. Look at that. 2 weeks in a row, the exact same number of actives, 431. Actives under contract, 84. Coming soon, 33, exactly the same as the week before. Pendings up considerably, 238. And compared to last month at this time, you know, probably a little bit higher. So in a couple of those categories. So definitely
Fulton's gone forward. Cobb's
Yep.
gone forward. The cab is flat or maybe a hair back.
Slightly forward, yeah. That's it.
All right. So
Cool.
what do you make of these numbers? Like, here's the irony of what I'm feeling is June historically has always been our biggest month.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in July and we're on the tail end of June. And June wasn't really our biggest month, or it wasn't anything to write home about, as they would say.
Right.
So
right.
is July, June, July, what I'm kind of making an inference about is we're kind of having a mediocre summer. We're not having 110-degree summer. We're having a 90-degree summer, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's I think it's good considering, but it's, you know, certainly not as strong as it could be.
Which, back to our analogy, feels like you're pedaling uphill on a bicycle a little bit.
Right. Well, and everything we do right now is through the lens of, you know, the last couple of years, so it feels worse than it is. So I think that's the other piece is like keeping perspective on that, right? Making sure that you're looking at it with, you know, a grain of salt and saying, yeah, it's way down from last year and the year before, but like if you compare it to a more normal year, going back to 2016 per se, 2015 maybe, like, you know, which was great years, we're not doing too bad. So, but definitely
Yeah.
fewer homes being sold overall. We have an inventory problem.
There you go. All right. Well, you had some stuff in Chart Masters you wanted to point out. Do you want to run to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just, it's really just this slide for the attached and detached, but there's a couple of things on here that I love to look at. And when I was looking at the stats, it made me realize there's some stuff going on here. So one thing is if you look at that center highlighted column, that's the months of supply. So, and we always kind of ignore the under 100,000 because that number is skewed because there's the only stuff under 100,000 that's sitting there is junk that nobody wants, unbuildable lots, you know, tear downs on a lot that's too small to build on, stuff like that. So if you look though, we're still under 3 months on most of these categories, but as you get up to 600,000 and 700,000, you're up to 3.2, 4.6 months, 800 to 900, you're at 3.7 months. But look what happens when you go over that. You're at 7.7 months in the 900 to a million, back down to 5.7, 100 to 1.5, and then at 15 months, 1.5 to 2. So that higher end you can see is definitely slowing down. So I think that's one thing that jumped off the page to me about this. The other thing was, Brett, the number of closings. If you look down the row, you see, you know, the middle, there's sort of like it slightly goes up as the price ranges go up, but it jumps way up when you hit 400,000 to 500,000. Okay. And again, this is attached. So there's 196 closings in that price range, 400,000 to 500,000. And I think it's because that's really sort of the most popular entry price point for home buyers now. Fewer people buying in the 350 to 4 and 3 to 350 range compared to 4 to 500. And look what happens when you go and look at it under the detached. You're in the 200, 300, 400, go up to 663 in that same price point for detached homes, and then back down to 464. So what sort of struck me on this number was, hey, if you're looking for business, where are the majority of people buying right now?
400 to 600.
Yeah, in that 300 to 600 range. And in particular, that 400 to 500 is really high. So if you want to get in front of more people that are actively looking to buy homes right now, do an open house at a $400,000 to $500,000 listing. If you want to look for listings, look in a neighborhood where that price point is prevalent. So part of being in a skills-based market is you have to really look at the data and understand it and understand how to implement it in your business.
Yeah, Mark, I had a conversation over the weekend. Somebody was buying their first house and they're in the high 4s. And I remember in my head, I'm thinking, man, I used to think the people's first house was in the 300,000. And then I thought, man, my first house was in the 150s. And then I'm thinking,
mine was 102.
Yeah. So maybe we're aging ourselves, but the reality is, what is the normal, which I know is a loaded statement. I'm well aware.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying is there is a frequency of people buying in that 400,000 to 500,000 range,
right?
Which probably makes sense. One, and two, if we're smart and strategic, we're going to go sit ourselves right in the middle of that number.
Absolutely. That's the best chance for success, whether it's at an open house or farming a neighborhood, is in that price point.
Yep.
You just have more chances to win.
There you go.
Cool. So that was really
good, Mark. Really good.
Yeah, that was really
All
about
right.
it. So you had a couple of articles here that you want to talk about.
Yep. Hang on. Somebody tried to call me. All right. First one's homebuyers face supply and pricing challenges. What can unlock the housing market tight inventory? I think a lot of it's new construction, Mark. We've talked about it quite a few times on this call. Is as much as I would love to unleash the army of real estate agents we call Heart of Atlanta Group, and everybody go list a bunch of houses, which I believe to be possible. Like, I promise you, there's people that would sell their house if you presented them with the right conversation. Right. We're just not presenting them with the right conversation. So there's training and coaching and all that around that. But a faster inventory shortage solution is probably going to be new construction. The unfortunate part of new construction is outside of tear downs, they have to build it where there's available and affordable land. Right. Which is going to take people mostly outside the perimeter or, Northwest Atlanta, Northeast Atlanta, South Atlanta is probably where, even East Atlanta is where most of that new construction is going to land. Mm-hmm. And therein lies commuting and that kind of thing. So, however, I see this to be a really good thing for us.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta has a lot of new construction underway right now. Like, new construction permitting is up. So I think we'll see, some relief in the inventory category soon. The biggest challenge is it takes time, right? Like, these things don't get built overnight. They're restricted by costs, by availability of skilled labor. There's so many factors and weather. I don't know about you, Brett, but I consider myself a pretty hard worker, but I wouldn't want to be outside in Texas or in Georgia today working, putting on a roof or something like that. So
no,
things slow down when it's hot, things slow down when it rains torrentially like it did the other night here. So there's a lot of factors that go into how quickly that inventory becomes available.
Somebody asked me the question the other day, do you know what dry heat is? And I thought I knew. And they said, when you have your oven baking and you open the door and you just feel that wave of heat. And, right now, when you walk outside, you feel a wave of heat when you leave your house. And does that affect buying and selling? Maybe. I mean, here's the thing. It probably affects the unmotivated.
Correct.
But it doesn't affect the motivated. So when you interact with somebody that's talking about real estate, you should in tune with the fact that they're probably motivated because they're going through some pain to have that conversation with you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you have to move because you're having a baby, you're not going to go, it's too hot, I'm not going to go out. Like, you're going to suck it up and do it because you have a ticking time bomb, right? Like, you have a deadline and you have to get moved. If you're thinking of moving,
did you just call a baby a ticking time bomb?
Yeah,
we'll erase that from the recording.
In the very best way. Yeah, I know. I'll take some crap for that. But no pun intended. Right. If you're looking for a new house, because you're like, it would be nice to have a rooftop deck, that's not going to motivate you to go out when it's 100 degrees outside and look at homes. It's just not. Yeah. You're going to put it off until it's more comfortable.
You are. And all that to say, I do think our industry is about to crest the bottom and be on the path to recovery. It doesn't change the fact that we're going to feel like we're pedaling a bicycle uphill, or running uphill, or whatever analogy you want to use. But the truth is it's only going to get better from here. It's not going to get worse. And Absolutely. That should come as back to our comment at the beginning. To me, that's the optimism emotion, is it's only going to get better from here.
Well, and I think in any kind of market, because the market's always going up and down, and we just have had an unusually long up run before this current down. But real estate always goes up and down. So the thing to remember is when it's down is to keep focused, because there's always the up on the other side of the horizon. You just have to hang in there until it does and keep doing the activities, because the activities bring the results.
There you go. What was my other article we sent?
Let's see. We've got, if I can find it, how a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit could upend the home buying industry.
Oh, this one's a pain in my, you know what?
Yeah.
Here's the thing about this, Mark, is there's a class action lawsuit, if you've been under a rock for a while, that attacks how we do buyer agent commissions.
Right.
And here's my leadership statement around that. One is the last big class action lawsuit in America was really the tobacco industry. And you would have thought the tobacco industry would have gone away, right, Mark?
Yeah.
However, it didn't go away. It just changed what it looked like. It changed how it did business. I do think this lawsuit has the potential to change how we do business. I don't think it's going to change our industry where we go away or anything of those sorts. But what I do need agents to get their head wrapped around is you need to understand your level of professionalism and understand your value proposition as a buyer's agent.
Right.
And Mark, if I'm being just vulnerable and transparent, I've made these statements when I sold houses. You can work with me. It won't cost you anything.
Yep.
It's free. I'm free to you. Or, all those things, which basically takes our value proposition and puts it on the floor.
Right.
And the truth is our agents are very well skilled and bring an enormous amount of value to the buyer relationship. We just need to get comfortable with what that is and why we're worth what we're worth. Right. And we need to speed that conversation up. What would you say?
I think you're dead on. I think you need to be able to not only add value and have a value proposition, but you have to know how to articulate it to the people you're talking to so that they can understand it. The communication of that value is going to be more and more important as time goes on. And I would sort of approach it in your head as though buyer's agent commissions went away today, and you had to prove to someone that they should pay you 3%. So how would you handle that? What would you say? Right? Like, think of it that way. Like, just assume that the very worst is going to happen and buyer agent commissions are no longer going to be built in, and you're going to have to convince someone to cash flow that. So if that was the case, what would you do? So here's the flip side of that conversation, though, too. Our industry is slightly above used car salespeople because of the fact that we have a low barrier to entry and there's not a lot of perceived value in what we do as a group. So with this market changing and these types of changes, it's only going to help those who are professional and good in this business stand apart and have a better reputation out there than, we might move up to like lawyer instead of used car salesperson, right? Like I think it'll push us in the other direction.
Well, I don't know if lawyers up or down, but we'll leave it there in your analogy. But Mark, here's the thing: the buyer representation agreements and all those stuff. Once again, transparent. Me too. I didn't sign them until the time they signed the contract, or even worse, my office called and said, "Hey, you didn't turn it in," and then I have to go get the buyer to sign it after they signed the contract.
Bad breath.
Which just, I know, right? No, here's the thing. I'm not villainizing anybody. I'm saying if we want to be professionals and approach this in a professional way, right, we need to go treat the relationship as a professional one and have those documents signed on the front end. Yeah. Communicate our value, communicate our expectations, and that takes that level of professionalism up to the lawyer if you want to go there. And it actually diffuses everything about this whole lawsuit. We're our own worst enemy around this, and that's why this is on our back door.
Well, if you don't have confidence in your value proposition, it makes it hard to present a buyer brokerage agreement confidently, right? So, A, you have to have a value proposition that you're confident in and truly believe that you are worth a 3% commission or more, and be willing to, share why that is and help convince someone else that it's in their best interest to do so. On top of that, you have to understand that, like, if you go into this, you have to have language and scripts around this. And it's as simple as saying, like, this is the form that you use to hire me. Let me walk you through it. Like, we shouldn't be embarrassed or feel weird about making people sign something to hire you.
Yeah, there you go. I think we need to be in front of this conversation, one, and two, let's lead the industry. Let's be the most professional out there. And if this is role play training, whatever we need to do to move fast into this, I want to be a big part of changing the industry that way. So I'm excited to even talk about it. I'm not scared of it. I'm excited about it. So, Mark, parting thoughts, sir.
Well, one parting thought. It's not exactly about anything we talked about, but something I wanted to share from a call I was on today.
Yeah.
When people are saying, a buyer or seller says, "I'm going to wait," what do we generally say to that? I think most agents go, "Okay," right? And we don't really push back at all. And if we just take the approach of coming from curiosity and saying, "What's important to you about waiting? Talk to me about what you see the value is in that, what the benefit is, so you can understand why, so that you can then help educate them as to the upside and downside to doing so, because every decision has an upside and downside, and our job is to make sure people see both the upside and downside and make good decisions based on what's right for them." So I think
100%.
my parting thought is, don't take "I'm waiting" as an answer. That's the start of a conversation.
Isn't that objection handling 101, Mark?
Yep, it is.
We just
It's
need
also
to,
something we haven't done in a long time.
it's not a stop sign. It's a slowdown, right? It's not a put a foot on the brake. I take my foot off the gas pedal. And we need to have a conversation around motivation to get me back on the gas pedal going forward.
Correct. That's it.
Love it. Mark Jones, you're always the best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.